Well, welcome everyone to Community Church Unitarian Universalist here in New Orleans. I'm Reverend Stacy, and I'll be serving as your worship associate this morning with Michele Firestone giving our sermon for this morning. So it is a joy to be with everyone here in person and online this morning. So who are we as a community church? We are a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is faith in action as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. So I encourage folks to look to your weekly email announcements for upcoming events. And in the meantime, we do have some announcements. I know there's a couple. Marcia, are you one of the folks who wants to give an announcement?
Good morning. Good morning. So if you are able, please stay in after the end of the service for a presentation from our finance committee that they will present the status of our current budget and our finances and whatever. You can ask questions, so we hope everyone will stay. Thank you.
Sean, you would like to have an announcement as well. Visitor. Well, let it be. And here comes Sean.
Hi everybody, sorry about that. Quick request for help, if anybody's able. Nicholas and Rebecca and I are laying plans to do an informal native plant garden out here on the fleur-de-lis side of the property in the vicinity of the little library, or whatever you call it, little free library. Anyhow, we plan to use bricks to create a border. And so in order to not have to buy them, because it's kind of a funny thing to have to buy, I am requesting, if anybody has some extra bricks on their property that are just lying around unused, or if you would happen to have any stones that are approximately brick size, would you like to donate them to our garden? And if so, just talk to me or Nicholas or Rebecca, and we'll see about getting them from you. Thanks.
Wait. When do you plan to do this again?
In 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yes?
I thought you were going to say a day. I'm sorry.
No, not today.
All right.
Thank you, Sean and Marcia, for those announcements. A couple that I just want to highlight is for next Sunday, we're going to do our water communion service. It's traditionally done as an incoming first Sunday service of the church here in September. And so we'll focus on nature, the blessings of water in our life, and we also will have a potluck. And there are a couple of us who left some vegan recipes. So when you grab coffee or water in the Fellowship Hall kitchen area, you can grab a couple recipes if you'd like. And also, I just wanted to give an update on Share the Plate. I know we have collected through June $4,000 to share to nonprofits and our endowment committee. And so that's just a gift that we're able to continue giving to our community. And I also want to do our land acknowledgement for this morning. So we acknowledge and pay tribute to the original inhabitants of this land. The city of New Orleans is a continuation of an indigenous trade hub here on the Mississippi River, known for thousands of years as Bobansha. Tribes that have lived on this land include the Caddo, the Natchez, the Choctaw, the Chitimacha, Puma, the Tunica, the Biloxi, the Topkapa, Ishak, among others. We recognize that as a result of broken treaties and involuntary removals, Native Americans were forced from their lands, and we remember and pay respect to the communities impacted by these actions. Native peoples have lived on this land since time immemorial, and the resilient voices of Native Americans remain an inseparable part of our local culture. With gratitude and honor, we acknowledge the indigenous nations that have lived and continue to thrive here. So my opening words for you today is from Jim Mason. Animals have been regarded as property for way too long. It's high time we look on a more loving and responsible relationship with our kindred beings in the web of life and on this beautiful planet. I always think and act as a guardian towards my kindred beings, never as their owner. And now is the time of our sacred time where we light a chalice, where we invoke hope and eternal truth to our worship experience. Please join in singing We Light This Flame, music by Bert Brunson.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Today I want to share with you a book called Amara and the Bats. Amara loved bats. When Amara was very small, a bat got trapped in the attic of her old house. Amara asked if she could hold the bat. But her mom and big brother, Samir, told her they should wait for the wildlife rescue team. They would know how to handle and look after the bat safely. When the wildlife rescue team arrived, they caught the bat carefully and held it very gently in a towel. Amara got to see the bat's fluffy face, beady eyes, and the delicate wings up close. Some are afraid of bats, but Amara thought they were so cute. Part of her wished she could keep it as a pet, but Amara knew the bat would be happier out in the wild, where it could fly around and be free. Ever since then, Amara loved bats. Her favorite thing to do is collect all the bat facts she could find and write them in her book. Mom, did you know that bats are nocturnal? That means they are awake at night. They hang upside down like this, and they're the only mammals that can fly. Amara and the family were moving to a new town. She was supposed to be packing up her room, but she kept getting distracted by more bat facts. Samir, did you know that bats have such a high-pitched squeak that they can't even hear them? We can't even hear them? They use echolocation to find their food in the dark. I can hear you, Samir laughed. Amara and her family often watched the bats flying near their old house. She knew that all kinds of bats lived all over the world, so no matter where she lived, she would always be able to see them. After they moved, Amara couldn't wait to visit the park in her new neighborhood to see the bats flying around at sunset. Did you know that most bats eat insects or fruit, but some eat fish, frogs, and even flowers? They have really long tongues to reach for the nectar. They are amazing pollinators. But when Amara and her family got to the park, there were no bats to be found. They asked the park ranger about the bats, but she hadn't seen any in a while. She used to have a few bats nearby, she said. The ranger said sadly, but it's just me working here now, and more of the land is being sold to make room for buildings. Amara felt a sad feeling in her tummy on the way home. She couldn't stop thinking about the bats and their habitat. There was so much that needed to be fixed. She felt as if the weight of the whole world was crushing down on her. What could she do? Amara, her mother knocked on her door gently. I unpacked the rest of your books, and your new magazine arrived. Thanks, Mom, said Amara, still feeling glum. It will feel like a home soon, I promise. Her mom placed the magazine and Amara's bat books on the bed and then gave her a hug. Amara opened her magazine and started to read. There was a story about young people organizing beach cleanups to clear plastic from the oceans, and another story of a boy teaching people to connect with nature by writing a blog and fighting to protect endangered birds. So she found lots of stories and videos online about kids taking action to help animals and the planet. Soon, Amara realized if they could make a difference, so could she. And she had an idea. Amara showed her mom and Samir a picture of a bat house, a little wooden house built for bats to roost in. Maybe if we can help the park rebuild some of the bat houses, the bats will come back. We have to try to save the park. She decided to talk about her idea for show and tell the next day. She was still new to the school, so she was a bit nervous to stand in front of the class. But Amara didn't have to worry because her classmates really wanted to help. They started to tell her about their favorite animals. Jasper loved tigers and Lucy loved the pangolins. Their favorite animals were endangered too. When Amara told Jasper and Lucy more about the bat houses, they had some great ideas. We can have a bake sale, said Jasper, and paint signs. Lucy waved her paintbrush. What if we could build a nature reserve in the park so that lots of wild animals could have a home in the city? Amara felt inspiration bubble up inside of her. She loved a challenge. The entire class painted signs and baked cookies to raise money for the nature reserve. Amara's new friends all wanted to help the bats come home. She was so happy. Amara's mom made some important phone calls, and soon their neighborhood gathered together to hold up the painted signs. It was hard work, but eventually people listened. The park would get its nature reserve. Over the next few months, volunteers helped make a bat-friendly sanctuary, a wild place where nature could flourish in the park. They made a new pond and planted flowers that smelled nice at nighttime, so lots of insects could come could come by for their bats to eat. The park ranger put the bat houses up in a special place with help from the wildlife rescue team. I hope they come back, Amara said thoughtfully, sipping her hot chocolate. We might have to wait a while, the ranger replied. It's okay, I can wait. Every month, Amara and her family would check to see if the bats had roosted. They waited and waited and waited, but the bats didn't come. Amara tried to stay brave. One day, when Amara was eating pancakes for dinner, her mom got a phone call. They needed to go to the park right away. When they arrived, the ranger waved them over. Amara was nervous. Had something happened to the bat houses? Suddenly, her mom and brother whispered, Amara, look. And there they were, flying above her. The bats had made a new home, and Amara felt at home too. It was the best feeling in the world. Yay, bats. Thank you so much. And we'll sing the kids out, even though I don't think she's, okay. We'll just sing them out wherever they are.
Now is our sacred time for sharing our joys and sorrows. If you are online, please write your joys and sorrows in the comments section. And if you are in person, there are cards to fill out when you entered. And if you didn't get a chance to do that, feel free to fill one out during the musical interlude. And now, for that interlude, we are going to sing number 134. Our world is one world, and we can remain seated.
What
from Mary Ann. A sorrow. Last week, one of my cats was hit by a car and killed instantly. Heartbroken. Jim O'Neill has a sorrow, sadness for so many suffering from fires and flooding. And Emma has a joy to share with us. I will be spending the next week with family on Grand Isle. Wonderful. Are there any others to share at this moment? Oh.
This is 2 weeks in a row, look out. My joy is for all the cats that I've had from childhood into adulthood. They have been the most wonderful companions, and right now, Charlotte and I do have a dog that we've had for 8 years. That's just an angel, my first dog. And in alignment with our service today, I have a quote that I wanted to share. It's by Donald L. Hicks. It says, "Those who teach us most about humanity aren't always humans."
So with that, we will light 2 more candles. One for the joy still bubbling up and too new to share, and one for the sorrows that we cannot yet put words to. Know that we love you and hold you in our hearts. And this is the time for our offering. Community Church Unitarian Universalist is a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us to do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online at ccuunola.org/stewardship or text at 504-370-2659 and text the word give. And you can also give here in person. You can raise your hand and someone will begin to pass the plate and come towards you. We give every Sunday 50% of our plate to a cause our congregation and its social justice ministry support. For the month of August, we have been supporting Southeast Louisiana Legal Services. This will be the last Sunday we're collecting for them. Just a brief list of the work they do. They protect domestic violence victims. They empower abused and neglected children by giving them a voice in their lives in the courtroom. They preserve housing for hardworking families. They work to end homelessness for people with disabilities and veterans. They protect elderly consumers, remove barriers to access medical care, and improve access to employment and education for vulnerable people. So we thank you for that generosity and care that we are able to give to other nonprofits and people in our community. And now we will sing hymn number 94, What Is This Life? And you can remain seated.
Genesis 1, verses 26 to 28. And God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the seas, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, "Be fruitful, and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth." Proverbs 12, verse 10. The righteous care for the needs of their animals, but the kindest acts of the wicked are cruel.
And now, please rise as you're willing and able to sing hymn number 203, All Creatures of Earth and Sky.
This is from the book Animal Kind by Ingrid Newkirk and Jean Stone. Animals love, they grieve, they feel emotional pain, they worry, and they can anticipate pain. In early 2015, the Australian farm sanctuary Edgar's Mission rescued a dairy cow named Clarabelle, who was about to be slaughtered because her milk production was declining. When she arrived at the sanctuary, volunteers discovered that she was pregnant. A week before her due date, Clarabelle began sneaking off the perimeter of the farm, avoiding staff and acting strangely. After research, volunteers discovered that Clarabelle had already given birth and hidden her baby in a tall patch of grass. At dairy farms, calves are typically dragged away from their mothers immediately after birth so the milk meant for the baby could be sold for human consumption. Studies show that this is a traumatic moment for cows, who are exceptionally maternal creatures. Clarabelle, who had lost an untold number of babies over the years, assumed that her child would be dragged away yet again and tried to hide her. Fortunately, she was at a farm sanctuary where she was able to finally raise her baby in peace. Most cows don't get that luxury. In a similar story, a veterinarian in upstate New York named Holly Cheever received a call one day from a puzzled dairy farmer. A brown Swiss cow had recently given birth, the farmer said, but her udder remained mysteriously empty even days later. It should have been swollen with many gallons of milk. Finally, nearly 2 weeks later, the farmer solved the problem. After following the mother out to pasture in the morning, he spotted her secretly nursing another calf in the forest near the edge of the farm. She had delivered twins. And knowing that one of her babies would be taken away to be made into veal like most calves, in a Sophie's Choice moment, she brought one baby to the farmer and kept one hidden in secret. As Holly later recounted, first she had memory of her 4 previous losses, in which bringing her new calf to the barn resulted in her never seeing him or her again. Second, she could formulate and then execute a plan. We think cows are stupid. All I know is this: there's a lot more going on behind those beautiful eyes than we humans have ever given them credit for. And as a mother who was able to nurse all 4 of my babies and did not have to suffer the agonies of losing my beloved offspring, I feel her pain. In truth, we will never be able to comprehend the depth and beauty of animal compassion. It is not solely a human characteristic to experience the ecstasy of love and the anguish of loss. All mothers, no matter if they have 2, 4, or 8 legs, understand what it means to lose a child. That piece of themselves that can never be restored. Modern science might offer inklings of the love possessed by dogs, cows, and any of the world's other 8.7 million species. But even the most powerful MRI machines will never penetrate that most peculiar of emotions. For proof, look no further than mice, who live their lives avoiding the gaze of mankind. Remember the mice in movies like Cinderella and Babe singing their sweet, high-pitched tunes? It turns out that real mice actually sing to each other in frequencies too high for the human ear to detect. Using sensitive microphones, Australian scientists discovered that mice sing to each other during courtship. Ultrasonic ballads, only they can hear. If we can lie in bed oblivious to the love songs of our tiny friends, then what else are we missing? The greatest love stories of our time may be happening high in the sky, deep under the sea, inside the densest forests, or perhaps under our own floorboards in the dead of night. It occurred to me that not everyone would get the title of this sermon. It's from the book Animal Farm by George Orwell, and I had to read it in middle school, but maybe not everybody did. But it's basically a satire on the Stalinist regime following the Russian Revolution. And we all know that communism was originally intended for all people to be equal, but we know what happened in Stalinist Russia, and that's not what happened. I watched a movie recently called Blackfish. It's a documentary about an orca named Tilikum, who killed 3 people at different times while in captivity, including a trainer named Don Brancho at SeaWorld in Orlando in 2010. It was all over the news. I'm sure you saw it. Orcas have been in the news a lot this summer. Between stories of them intentionally bumping into boats, and very recent death of an orca named Tokate at a Miami Marine Park just this last week or two. And scientists are not sure why they've always had this tendency to bump against boats out at sea, but it's been more so this summer, and scientists don't know if that's an act of aggression or an act of play. Different scientists differ, and who knows if we'll ever know. There has never been a recorded human death by an orca in the wild. I mean, by an orca, a recorded human death by an orca in the wild. There have been only 4 recorded deadly attacks by orcas in captivity, and 3 of those were by this particular orca, Tilikum, who was the subject of that movie. Now, orcas are known to be incredibly intelligent, social, and empathic animals. Most of them stay within the same pods for their lifetime. Others leave for different pods, but the ones who do leave usually stay with their mothers for about 10 years. And Tilikum was taken from his mother at about 2 years old, so that gives you an idea of how young he was. Each pod of orcas has its own separate and distinct language from other pods. They're known to mourn their deaths, the deaths of their loved ones, and the kidnapping of their offspring by humans. Bill James, the former chief of the Lumi Nation, which tried for decades to get Tokate returned to her home waters, compared the capture of orcas to the government taking Indian children from their families and placing them in boarding schools. By 2010, Tilikum had been in captivity over 25 years. According to the Book of Orcas and Men, the average lifespan of an orca in captivity is about 8.5 years, and there have been a lot of cases of orcas living longer. This is an average. In the wild, the average is 31 years for males and 46 for females. Tilikum had gone from living with his family in the waters off Iceland to being captured at around 2 years old and living in a small concrete pool in which he could barely swim around. He was originally at a water park in California, but was sold to SeaWorld after killing his first human victim. And that was a man who had, at night when the park was closed, he had climbed over the fence and somehow gotten into the pool with Tilikum, either by accident or fallen in. He had alcohol in his blood, so they don't know if he was drunk and fell into the pool or not. At SeaWorld, he was placed in another concrete pool with other orcas. He was subjected to attacks by the other orcas, who raped him with their very sharp teeth, causing long, deep cuts, and he had to be isolated, quote unquote, for his own good. In humans, solitary confinement is used as the severest form of punishment in our prison system. It has been decried as inhumane, and it is known to cause severe mental problems, including psychosis. Why would we think it would be any different in other animals, especially very social animals? Unfortunately, solitary confinement is still being used against humans and non-human animals. And by the way, Tilikum, after killing 3 people, was still used to entertain people at SeaWorld. But his biggest value was in his semen, which was used to breed new orcas in captivity. Tilikum lived another 7 years until he died. He was a huge moneymaker for SeaWorld. SeaWorld has made billions of dollars by exploiting captive wild animals. A National Geographic article that just came out a couple of weeks ago reported that the USDA's enforcement of animal welfare regulation at SeaWorld is woefully lax, according to experts. In other words, there's really no one making sure these animals are being properly cared for. On another note, we all remember Siegfried and Roy, right?
Oh, yes.
They were known to use punitive tactics to train their tigers into submission, although they would argue, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree, that they adored their tigers, and vice versa. But one day in 2003, I can't believe it's been 20 years, one of those tigers, Manticore, attacked Roy Horn and very nearly killed him. There are various versions of why that happened when it did, including the theory that Manticore was actually trying to protect Horton. But we'll never really know what was going on in Manticore's head, will we? Tigers are wild, majestic animals. Like all cats, even our cute, fluffy little house cats, they are natural-born killers. It's in their DNA. And they will never be truly domesticated. Why? What on earth are they doing on a stage in Las Vegas entertaining people? What is it that makes humans think they have a right to do whatever they wish to other sentient beings? In the King James translation of the Old Testament, man was given dominion over the animals and told to subdue the earth. Of course, the word dominion was translated from the original Hebrew, and I'm certainly no biblical scholar and no etymologist, but from a little research online, it looks like modern scholars seem to agree that humans were given a responsibility to rule the earth and its inhabitants with care. Personally, I question what harm may have been done to animal kind by humans believing that non-human animals were created solely for their benefit. Recently, there's been an explosion of scientific studies showing that animals are infinitely more conscious, sentient, and empathic than we ever imagined. We've had this idea that certain animals are not able to feel pain. I don't understand that. In a 2021 article from Psychology Today entitled, "Can Animals Experience Empathy?" Dr. R. Douglas Field states, "Just as empathy is vital for human relations, so too could empathy be critical for other social animals. And there's a compelling body of behavioral research to support this. In recent years, neuroscientists have begun to identify the neural circuits of empathy in experiments on animals. The same neural circuits that are activated in a victim exhibiting a behavioral response to a threat are activated in the brain of the witness of the same species. At a neural circuit level, this is thought, it is as though the observer was having the same experience, including feeling pain. It's the very definition of empathy, to feel someone else's pain. So the short answer is yes, certain animals can feel empathy. Maybe they all can. We just don't know. Some other examples in the news just in the past few months. A Scientific American article entitled "The Inner Lives of Insects" that notes bees and other insects are far more cognitively complex than thought. A revelation that has wide-ranging ethical implications. Researchers have shown that bees and some other insects are capable of intelligent behavior that no one thought possible. Bees, for example, can count, grasp concepts of sameness and difference, learn complex tasks by observing others, and know their own individual body dimensions, a capacity associated with consciousness in humans. They also appear to experience both pleasure and pain. In other words, it now looks like at least some species of insects, and maybe all of them, are sentient. And there was just an article in Smithsonian Magazine this past week that discussed a zoologist, a black zoologist named Charles Henry Turner, who 100 years ago did some studies on fish, bees, spiders, and other animals, and found that they feel pain. He found that bees enjoy play and different things, and he was ignored. An article in The Guardian entitled, "Fruit Flies Have Shorter Lives If Exposed to Their Own Dead." This was an NPR story that I had to look at a little further because I found it fascinating. Reported that University of Michigan researchers found, quote, "the sight of their dead comrades is enough to drive fruit flies to an early grave," end quote. The researchers suspect the flies experience the fly equivalent of depression. And just last week, I was talking to Miriam Gatschall during coffee hour, and she described how when studying microorganisms under a microscope over time, it was obvious to her that every living thing wants to live. We heard a reading earlier about dairy cows hiding their calves to avoid them being taken. How can we hear stories like that and still wonder whether animals have feelings or empathy, or whether they suffer pain or trauma? What happens when humans suffer repeated pain and trauma? They can become unhappy, depressed, or hopeless. They can develop mental illness. They can become aggressive or violent to themselves and to others. It seems only natural to believe some of the same things can happen to non-human animals. Think about dogs who are bred and raised to fight and then become aggressive to humans, and then blame the dogs. We need to do better when it comes to our treatment of animals, wild and domesticated, human and non-human. We need to find more compassion. We as UUs share the seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence. Sadly, not all humans agree with that. Even our own UUA seemed reticent to include the animal kingdom in our first principle. There's been a change that has been proposed, but it has not been adopted, to change it from the inherent worth and dignity of every person to the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Because every living being has inherent worth and dignity. In years past, we relied on animals for food, clothing, shelter, transportation. But today we have supermarkets that carry an endless supply of foods with or without animal products. There are endless non-animal sources of textiles. And we have tractors and plows and cars to get us from point A to point B. 100 years ago, animals were raised on family farms, think Old McDonald's farm, where they were able to graze and forage. But in order to keep up with the demand for more and cheaper goods, now they are raised in horrific, inhumane conditions in factory farms, where they are barely allowed to move around, and their natural habits are suppressed. So what is a compassionate human to do? What are humans entitled to? Should everyone eschew all animal products and become vegan? I'm not here today to make you feel guilt or shame or to tell you what to eat or what to wear. Eschewing animal products would be great for the animals and the environment and maybe even for overall health. But that's a very personal and complex question. And it can depend on many factors, including culture, economics, health issues. When I was a single mother living from paycheck to paycheck and commuting an hour and a half every day, it was all I could do just to get dinner on the table quickly and cheaply. I was mostly vegetarian at that time, and let's just say we ate a lot of omelets and beans and fried egg sandwiches. Cheap and quick. And I only had one child, and I had a pretty good job. It's certainly much more difficult for people with larger families, less money and less time. Not everyone has access to inexpensive vegetables and fruits, or can afford to buy vegan versions of their favorite foods, which are often prohibitively expensive. Whole Foods right now has this vegan steak. $10 for 2 portions. That's crazy to me. It's made from vegetable products, anyway. But with a little research, you can make healthy and animal-free foods that aren't too expensive, if you want to. If possible, you might consider buying certified humane products. According to the Humane Society of the United States, certified humane standards include minimum space allowances, bedding material, and environmental enrichment, such as hay bales, pecking blocks, and perches for chickens, among dozens of other basic requirements for animal health and nutrition. Animals are never confined in cages or crates and are free to display natural behavior. Farms are inspected by trained auditors. But again, these products can be very expensive. Not everyone can afford this, and they're simply not available to everyone. Not to mention, there's some debate as to whether the conditions on some of these farms are actually humane. It's not a perfect solution, but it's something. You could also consider reducing, but not necessarily eliminating, your consumption of animal products. Think like Meatless Mondays or Veganuary. According to the book Animal Kind, the average American today eats 222 pounds of red meat and poultry every year, compared to 138 pounds in 1950, an increase of 60%. I found several estimates online for the numbers of animals that would be saved each year by one person not consuming any animal products. The numbers varied from 80 to 105 animals per person per year. And that did not include marine animals, so no seafood. If you cut back on animal products, you can do your own estimate of how many animals you will be saving. And a big thing is, in addition to reasons of compassion, consuming animals takes a huge toll on the environment. According to a 2021 article from MIT, meat contributes to climate change in one way most plant-based foods do not. Animals, especially ruminants like cows and sheep, directly release the greenhouse gas methane as they digest their food. We all know those cowbirds and other things. Methane is a short-lived greenhouse gas, but it's also a powerful one. While it persists in the atmosphere, it traps around 100 times as much heat as carbon dioxide. Meat produces far more greenhouse gases than plant crops do. A recent study showed that a pound of beef produces on average around 15 times as much CO2 as a pound of rice, and around 60 times as much as a pound of wheat, or corn or peas. There's a lot more that can be said about the environmental impact of meat consumption, especially the amount of water that's required to raise food animals versus plant foods. But that's another topic for another day. But I did want to just show you quickly this little graphic. How thirsty is our food? Liters of water required to produce 1 kilogram of the following food products. And for those of you like me who are metrically challenged, 1 kilogram is about 2.2 pounds. So, in order to produce 2.2 pounds or 1 kilogram of beef requires over 15,000 liters of water. And it goes down. Nuts is actually the second thing. We all knew that nut trees require a lot of water. I had no idea. It was number 2. Then sheep, goat, pig, chicken, eggs, cereals, milk, fruits, vegetables. Okay. Meat, over 15,000 liters. Vegetables, 300 liters per kilogram of food. It's just not sustainable for us to eat this much meat. It's not sustainable for our planet. So the bottom line, we as a society need to do better. We need to demand better treatment of all animals, including the human ones, and of the earth, and we need to make sure healthy, humanely raised, and environmentally friendly food is available to everyone. May it be so.
So we extinguish our chalice here, that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. And may it guide your way until we are together again. And Michele is going to offer us one last word before we sing our closing hymn.
These are words from Jenny Leading Cloud of the White River Sioux. The buffalo and the coyote are our brothers. The birds are cousins. Even the tiniest ant, even a louse, even the smallest flower you can find, they are all our relatives. We end our prayers with the words, Mitakue Oyasin, all my relations. And that includes everything that grows, crawls, runs, creeps, hops, and flies on the continent. please go forth and be kind to all our relations. Please join us after for a meeting with the Finance Committee and for coffee and snacks.
And now we will sing hymn number 173, In the Branches of the Forest, and you can rise as you're willing and able to do that closing hymn.
Are we standing here for the meeting or?